Welcome to Central Configuration, Global Products, and Regional Settings. Let's get started. So within the central configuration of Taleo Recruiting, we're going to talk about global, product, and regional settings today. So I'm going to go to my configuration. So settings are used in Taleo to configure features. So there's two types of settings. There's global settings that affects multiple products within Taleo. So it could affect both career section, recruiting, onboarding. And then there's product settings. So settings that are specific to the product. So a product that's only, a setting that's only available within recruiting, or only in the career section, or only onboarding. So when we're looking at the configuration page, and you can see that there are shortcuts within the majority of the sections here. So I can go to my general configuration. And for the most part, general configuration will be multiple product lines. So it's across. It's not just recruiting, but it's across all of the products. So we have smart org settings. So if I go here, you can see that there are smart orgs. There's also recruiting settings. So that is specific to the products of the recruiting. So settings that are for requisitions, for candidate viewing, for message templates. So anything that has to do with the recruiting from a user's perspective. We also have, go my breadcrumb, and we also have career section settings. So those are more from a candidate's perspective applying to jobs. So the different components from, or the different settings that you can kind of set for them. And then there's also onboarding settings specific to that product. So all of the settings within onboarding that you can kind of look through. And you also have settings for reporting. Not too many, but you do have a few. So settings are, for the most part, are usually configured by the system administrators. So when Taleo is delivered, there are default settings that are set for delivery. So a system administrator can kind of go in and modify those values or change. As an implementation consultant, that is something that we help with as well. So there are some settings that we definitely kind of go through with clients to, kind of talk about the different best practices with the settings. But from an implementation perspective, definitely something that we go through. So certain settings can be changed by users. So there are public settings, and those are any type of settings that you can kind of change as a system administrator, that you have the ability to just edit. But there are some settings that are protected. So as system administrators, you can view the setting, but the changes can only be done by Oracle. So you would create a ticket to ask for that protected setting to be changed. There are some settings that are private, and that means that as a system administrator, you can't view it or you can't change it. It's only Oracle that has it. You will come across private settings in situations, and when you are looking at your configuration guide, it will clearly tell you that you need to touch base with Oracle in order to kind of have a change for that. Um, an example of that would be the timeout. So the timeout is defaulted by 30 minutes, and you can't see that setting, but you do know when you're looking at my Oracle support that it is a private setting. And you would have to log a ticket, and it's only Oracle that would be able to kind of change that setting. So configuring settings, you would locate the setting, and one of the things to kind of, I mean, you have to have the permission for it, but as a system administrator, you would have, you should have the permission to kind of list or edit the majority of the settings inside of the zone. Um, you would just go to the setting, find it, and I will say that the best part is to use your refine by. It can be, for the most part, I use keywords, but you can kind of refine by categories as well. And if I wanted to kind of change the organization logo, then I would do a keyword search on organization. And there's my two logos that are available. At any point in time, if you change a setting and you want to return it to the default, you do have the ability to just click the reset. So if I had you can see that the default value is yes here. Oh, I didn't pick a good one because that one is a protected one. Let me go here. So if I made a change and I wanted to reset it, I would take a look at my default value and I would just click my reset and it would bring it back to the default value. And you can see it's been reset to the default, the previous value, so everything is kind of stamped. The next part we're going to take a look at is regional settings. So regional settings are used to configure the setting that controls numbers, dates, currency, language formats. And in the regional settings, the identifier list varies according to the language. So if you have multiple language, if it only supports English and French, you will see those identifiers. So you can set it for both languages. So if I go to take a look at my numbers, and oops. So if I go into, you can see my Smart Org settings, I have regional settings. So when I go into the regional settings, you will see that it's identified through the language. So if I know that I have my English, Then I have my different sections, so I would be able to take a look at my number. So what's my settings? Do I want to, what's the symbol of my decimal, the digit grouping, any leading zeros? So all of those from a numbers perspective. From a currencies perspective, I can talk about what my default, so I can change that to say that it is what my default currency is and what the digit group and the symbols. So I want to use the commas, 2 decimals, negative numbers. I can also reset it to default as well. I'm going to change my default to be US dollars. And then I can take also the defaults of my dates. So there are many times that you may have a standardization on dates, and sometimes this can be really important, especially if you're kind of dealing with some integrations and stuff. So you want to take a look at your date settings and talk to your group when you're doing the mapping to make sure that you've got the right settings in place so that your integration is successful and it's there by default, if that's applicable. Otherwise, you can choose in terms of the different, whether it's a full date format or a short date format in terms of what it's going to be set as. And that is information from a global, a product, and regional settings perspective. Thank you.